Hello, 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 people of YouTube. We are back with another video, even though just 10 people are watching. Anyhow, joining us again after a long overhaul of absences. Mr. Divyansh, how are you, sir?
Great, great. Like I was just waiting for Italy to win the Euros. So now, since they have won it, I am back.
So we are back after 24 hours of the final, more than 24 hours. Italy have been crowned the champions. England have had some issues. And where do we begin? I think the best place to begin would be to go on from the penalties because that was probably the decisive moment. What
Yeah,
do you? There has been a lot of criticism about the penalty takers. Gareth Southgate has come up to said, "I decided who will take, and I take the full criticism." What are your thoughts about the penalty takers, and do you think somebody else should have come up instead of the young players?
uh, that's a really good question to start, and yeah, we can really debate on the fact that whether they should have give the chance to the more experienced players rather than the young players. But see, it's just perspective. Uh, Penalty, yes, definitely. People think that it's an easy way to score, and it's definitely an easy way to score. But when like it's a Euro final, your nation hasn't been in a final since 1966. It's England's first Euro final, so yeah, definitely the pressure was on them. And say, according to me, the team, Gareth Southgate, took the responsibility of the lineups and the penalty takers. I would say that that's all he can do. See, he is a manager. We are not with them. They are training. It's not like anyone just stands up and say like I have to take a penalty. Like they are proper training sessions. They train for months. So I would say that coach would be the best person to know that who is the team's best five players to pick to have a penalty. Obviously they have all the analysts in the world. They have all the coaches, and it's all data based. It's not like that. Someone maybe like Marcus Rashford or maybe like Jadon Sancho. Like there were players who have missed the penalty, and but I don't think that it was really a problem on the behalf of coach or maybe the team. Yes, there were some young players. I won't say inexperienced, young players, but I don't think that it was a factor to decide that. Yeah, there may be chance that even the experienced players they have like Sterling or maybe Grealish, or there are many players they can also miss the penalty. Like there is no 100% guarantee that they're gonna score. I would say Marcus Rashford is the prime example of that. He is not a young player. He has taken a lot of penalties at United before Bruno Fernandes was there, and he is quite an experienced player. He's he has seen big stage competition. He has been in the high pressure situations, and even although it was a crossbar and the keeper couldn't save it, but it was a miss. So if a player like Rashford could miss it, so I don't think that these claims, yeah, I mean like your nation, it's like emotion. People are emotionally attached to a football team, and they are criticizing the team. Like I can understand their emotions, but according to me, they are just baseless. There is not a rigid point behind it.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think so as well. Not a big fan of players coming on to just take just a penalty. I remember Jadon Sancho and Marcus Rashford were deployed on the right wing. I think Rashford played a right back for about 2 to 3 minutes against who was it? I think Bernadeschi started playing on the left, but
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah, I don't think I'm a very big fan of that. And at the end of the day, Rashford took a decent penalty. He sent Donnarumma the wrong way, which the others couldn't. And I think it's being reflected a lot on Jadon Sancho and Marcus Rashford that they missed their penalties. But also, if you look at the Italian camp, Andrea Bellotti missed the first penalty. They had an advantage, and so did Jorginho. I think it's just for the fifth penalty to be taken by Bukayo Saka. I think we've already seen that Gareth Southgate has a lot of confidence in Bukayo Saka. He started Saka instead of Sancho, Foden, and Grealish, the likes of these. Because I mean that's a different point, but that just shows how much confidence the manager has in the 19-year-old. And regardless of that, just having the courage of stepping up at such a big stage, I think deserves a lot of plaudits. And people who are shithousing them should be just ashamed. Yeah, I think Jordan Pickford also deserves a lot of plaudits. Wouldn't have started for me, but his distribution and yeah, I think a lot of people will say that the defense ahead of him didn't let a lot of shots come in through, and just sat back, and he didn't have to save much for the starting what like 4 games. It's a lot. It's a lot of time not to concede a single goal till like 5 games. Anyhow, let's move on to the match. Yeah, so there was a lot of debate between whether England will start with a back four or a back three. They ended up starting with a back three. I think the plan was to push Italian fullbacks back behind, and especially with no Spinazzola and the great Emerson. There was a lot of a good that was a good idea. And in the build up to the first goal, which occurred in like 2 minutes, Federico Chiesa did not track Shaw. Of course, he's very attack minded. We've seen him play like this when he was playing in Fiorentina. That he's not very used to going back behind and tracking people. And Shaw had one of the cleanest strikes. I think it was so aesthetically beautiful to watch in slow motion. But yeah, so the back three. What are your thoughts on going Gareth Southgate choosing the back three instead of the back four?
As you said, for me also it was a little bit. It was a little bit of a surprise for me. Like it's a final. You don't really want to do a lot of experiment with your lineups, with your formations, because it's not a stage to do experiment. It's a stage where you like to go with the players and with the formations that you already know that have worked in the past for them. So, as you mentioned, like in the not after the first goal, even in the first half, we have seen that like sorry, England have their possession. Like Italy weren't even able to cross the halfway line if it is wasn't for Federico Chiesa. Italy were like pushed back to their own half. So for the first 25 to 30 minutes, I would say like that formation really worked, and England should have scored one more goal. Although we have known the Italian defense and they haven't conceded more than one goal for I don't know how many games, but it's been a lot. It's been quite a while. Even Donnarumma has been playing for 5 years for Italy and he haven't conceded two goals in a single match. So obviously it was a little difficult for England to score two goals, but according to me, it would be easier after the first goal because it came as a shock for Italy, and definitely England planned it the way with the beautiful through pass of Harry Kane. He just changed the wing and then a beautiful assist, and as you mentioned, the finish of Luke Shaw. So I thought that if the pressure was definitely on the Italian side. So and England were pushing. It's not like they have scored a goal and now they are sitting in the back waiting for Italians to confront. They were pushing, they were pressing high. So I think that they should have gone for the goal and maybe secure one more goal and put a lot of pressure on the Italians. But as the match went for after 25 minutes or maybe after 30 minutes in the first half, Italy regained their game or their style in which they play. They were trying to keep possession. Federico Chiesa, obviously, according to me, the best player of Italy in this tournament. It definitely Donnarumma deserve all the credits that he has got. He's the player of the tournament. But yeah, if it is warden for Chiesa, I don't think that the attack of Italy would have been at the level that it was. So yeah, as I mentioned, the first half of the first half was definitely with England. yeah, in the second half of the first half, Italy does try to come back and maybe had one or two chances. So yeah, according to me, they should have scored maybe one more goal. So now let's come to the second half, because we all know that in the they got a good 15 minutes break. Managers just keeps changing strategies, and like Italy were 1-0 down. So what do you what do you want to say about the performance of Italy, especially in the second half?
Yeah, I think the second half changes got Italy a lot much more farther control, I believe. Uh, from that 4-3-3, they shifted into a sort of a 4-1-4-1. Not even a 4-1-4-1. It was more like a three at the back with Chiellini almost shifting to left back, allowing Emerson to just go forward as much as he wanted to. Insigne could cut in inside, and I think Spain showed the most efficient way to play against Italy. It was by not allowing their midfield that many touches. And if you see, like I can see the stats right now, for the time they played, Nicolo Barella had about 44 touches in 53 minutes. Marco Verratti had 133 touches in 95 minutes, and Jorginho had 118 touches for the whole 120 minutes he played. So the amount of touches that Marco Verratti has with a pass accuracy of 94%, you can see that he started to dictate the tempo, and especially when he almost got a yellow card very late in the game. Like he did not get a yellow card in the first 90. That is amazing. And a player like Verratti is so important. I think people started to undermine him when Locatelli was putting in such great performances at the start of the tournament. But the way Verratti started to handle the tempo and handle the sort of English press, England are used to letting the people come onto them. They're not used to tackling. I think they have one of the lowest tackles per 90 in throughout their squad throughout the tournament because they let the opposition take a decision. Where it's mostly, I think I read this in Alex Stewart's tweet. It said, which in Insignia's case would be turn in and shoot, which is right. And especially and most of the players like at this stage they believe in themselves and they have so much confidence that they can take the shot. But when the substitutes occurred, like when Barella was taken off for I think it was Cristante. I could see his face. I forgot his name. I Brian Cristante came in and he was helping in that sort of a pivot where Verratti could go a little forward and Jorginho and him just handled the deep lying midfield roles with all the creative work going through Marco Verratti. And this is where Verratti's brilliance comes in. Handling the tempo against a team who's sitting back, holding onto the ball, always having an eye for possession. But that being said, I think England just sat back too early. They just had something and they went like, okay, now we should just sit back a little bit. I think there were a few very critical moments, like when Emerson finally started to play well. In the second half, I think that's a good bit of man management from Roberto Mancini. Somebody must have gotten a hand around his shoulder and told him, "Look, you're getting in the right places. You're just not doing the right thing." The finishing product wasn't there. I think in the first 45, he attempted three crosses. None of them went. He took a shot. That was very awkwardly blocked, and his passes were getting misplaced again and again. And it's a big role to fill coming in for possibly if Spinazzola had played, he would have been one of the players of the tournament, right?
Definitely.
And once I think once Verratti left, the it was a little bit. So, I mean, after 95 minutes, it's kind of, especially when you have Locatelli, you will think of making a substitute. But in extra time, when Verratti left, that is when England started to pile up the pressure that they saw, oh, we there might be a chance that we could. And England had some starring performances. What the fuck? And especially Declan Rice. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about Declan Rice going to Chelsea for about what, like 70, 80 million now.
Yeah.
I think absurd because I don't think he's worth that much. But he's definitely a 40 to 50 million pound player for sure. because he had the most tackles on the day, most dribbles on the day, and his progressive passing was pretty good. He was scanning the whole field. I don't think his passes were any so off. If you look at and yeah, 75% pass accuracy, so not that great, I guess. But he was at, I think the passing accuracy is down because he was attempting a lot more progressive passes, and in the middle of that, he started losing the ball, trying to give it to either Harry Kane or trying to feed it to Sterling, who could just turn around and run. But yeah, I think Calvin Phillips had a great tournament. Kyle Walker had a great tournament. But it is what it is. I just wanted to make a special shout out to these two players who I think everybody adores, especially after what they did. And these two players are the PhD of defending, Mr. Leonardo Bonucci and Giorgio Chiellini. 36 and 34 respectively. Of course, they have a brotherhood amongst them. Bonucci, of course, left for Milan for 1 year, came back to Juventus, and I just wanted to know what are your thoughts on Mr. PhDs and Qatar. Do you see Chiellini and Bonucci going in?
Yeah, I mean, just like you mentioned, one of Jose Mourinho's quote, they can literally go to Harvard and teach how to defend, like they are PhD holders. See, that's where experience comes in the game. They have been on the like they lost to Spain 4-0 in the final in 2012, I guess. In the 2012 Euro, I guess they lost. Yeah, so they have the experience. They have tasted the bitter pill. They know how things change drastically. Plus, see, apart from experience, what we have to really mention when we come to like the physicality of a player or who's got the best physique and blah, we often think of players like Ronaldo, and now Ramos is also a good example. But if you're gonna look at these two, they may not have the best of the body shapes like those buff abs and stuff like that. They don't have any, but like the way they maintain their physical ability to defend, like defending is not an easy job at 36. Like you have to maybe not go for a longer runs like the fullbacks, but you have to accelerate very quickly because that's where the striker caught you. If your acceleration is not that good, so they're definitely not a chance you're gonna catch the striker. So at the age of 34 and 36, if you have the acceleration to stop players like Harry Kane, Sterling, Rashford not in this game because he didn't really get a chance. But even throughout the tournament, we have seen that Italy has been tied up with the likes of Belgium and Spain. So we have seen that, yeah, definitely they have experience, but we should not, underline the statement that they really work on their physique and how they have maintained their ability to perform. According to me, I believe they are the best defensive player in the Euros, even at this age. So, like, we have quite good defenders in the Euro. They are definitely, as you mentioned, there was Kyle Walker, there was Luke Shaw, although they are fullbacks, but they were quite defenders. But Bonucci and Keleni just shines as always. Okay, now a little controversial moment. Obviously, Kilini pulled Saka, and it was a yellow for some people. It's a so. I would like you to give your thoughts. Definitely, it was a yellow, but please explain to the fans of England why it was not red.
Yeah, I think just because of the ability of that picture to become a meme, it's become so much. I've already seen a lot of memes floating around about that challenge. Do you call it a challenge? You just pulled him down like a lever.
It's definitely not a tackle.
Yeah, it's definitely not a tackle. See, I just like you said, there were a lot of fast paced players, and I think what stood Bonucci and Chiellini apart was the fact that before these players could make their runs, their positioning was so well that they almost had 5 to 6 yards ahead of the game, right? They it just comes with experience, especially a Serie A defender who we've seen it over the past few years. Nesta's played for a long time. I think Zanetti played for a very long time. Maldini played for a very long time, and now Chiellini and Bonucci playing for a long time. It's just with experience comes wisdom, and I just think for the first time in the whole tournament, Chiellini got caught because he's not, flexible now to play that left back role that he was playing in 2008, I believe, and especially now in that final when with Emerson pushing up, he was almost like a left back, even though he was playing as a left centre back, and he just saw Saka pull away. And once if he would have, I don't think there was a chance of Chiellini catching up. And Chiellini, I just believe saw for the first time that he was behind, and he just went okay, yeet, and yeah, I think it was a yellow card because it was right on the half line, nobody around. Uh, what might have happened, we will never know because Chiellini didn't let us, and that's the he just took a yellow card, and I think that also speaks a lot of volumes about Chiellini and Bonucci. Both were on yellow cards, both played a full 120 minutes. Bonucci even went out to score a penalty. So, so I think. Yeah, I think that's it for the final. We've wrapped up almost everything. We definitely do not condone people abusing the three players who've missed the penalties. We're absolute kings for standing up, and I think that's going to be it. Do you have any final comments, sir?
Yes, in the first video, I told that Italy are strong contenders to win, and now they have won it. So I believe, yes, I do know some football. I can still make some predictions. That's my final thought. I would like to end this video on.
Anyhow, thanks for watching. Bye bye.